August 18th, 1940, 05:47 hours, Castle Bromwich Aircraft Factory, Birmingham. Elsie Whitworth tightened the last rivet on Spitfire R6915's starboard wing section, her arms aching from 11 hours on the assembly line. Around her, 3,000 other workers, most of them women, moved through the vast factory floor in orchestrated chaos. Metal screeched against metal. Welding torches flared. Pneumatic rammers thundered. The noise was constant, overwhelming, and absolutely essential. Elsie stepped back to inspect her work. The wing section was complete, ready to be fitted to fuselage, currently being assembled 3 stations down the line. In 6 hours, this particular Spitfire would roll out of the factory, receive final inspection, and be flown to RAF Biggin Hill to replace aircraft shot down yesterday. She'd been working at Castle Bromwich for 4 months, ever since her husband had been called up for service with the 8th Army. Before the war, she'd worked as shop assistant. Now, she was aircraft fitter, her hands building the fighters that kept Britain in the air. The supervisor called out, "Right, that's R6915's wings done. Get started on R6916. We've got 12 more to complete before shift change." Elsie moved to the next workstation, where fresh aluminum sections waited. 12 aircraft, 8-hour shift. The mathematics were brutal but achievable. Castle Bromwich had produced 320 Spitfires in July. The target for August was 350. Every shift, every worker, every rivet contributed to production rate that Luftwaffe intelligence insisted was impossible. Above the factory floor, through the camouflaged glass roof designed to hide the facility from German bombers, dawn light filtered across Birmingham. Somewhere over southern England, RAF fighters were already scrambling to intercept the morning's first German raid. Some wouldn't return, but their replacements were being built right now by women like Elsie, who understood that every Spitfire they completed might save British lives and keep the Luftwaffe at bay one more day. The production line never stopped, the factories never slept, and the Germans, counting their victories in the sky, never understood that they were fighting not just RAF pilots, but British industrial capacity that could replace losses faster than the Luftwaffe could inflict them. The mobilization. Britain's aircraft production miracle didn't happen by accident. It was a result of systematic preparation that began years before the war and accelerated dramatically after Dunkirk. The government made one radical decision: fighters first, everything else later. Every Spitfire and Hurricane became a national priority, while bombers, trainers, and prototypes were nearly abandoned. To protect production from air raids, assembly was split across shadow factories, while car plants began building wings and even furniture makers turned to shaping fuselages. Perfection was replaced with urgency. Engineers adopted a new motto: good enough to fly. At the same time, the British workforce was completely remade. Women poured into factories, learning complex mechanical work in a matter of weeks instead of months. 12-hour shifts and 7-day work weeks became the new normal, yet morale held because everyone understood the stakes. Skilled men were kept out of military service to stay on the production lines, while civilians handed over aluminum pots, pans, and railings to be melted into aircraft frames. Behind the scenes, bureaucracy was torn apart. Red tape vanished almost overnight. Specifications were frozen so factories could focus on building, not revising. Parts were standardized so components from one plant could fit planes from another. Communication between squadrons and factories became direct and immediate. If a Spitfire went down in the morning, salvage teams were already recovering parts by the afternoon. The transformation was dramatic. In May 1940, Britain produced 325 fighters. By July, production reached 425. By September, it peaked at 467 fighters monthly, more than Luftwaffe could destroy even during heaviest fighting. The crisis. By summer 1940, Britain faced existential threat. The Luftwaffe's systematic attempt to destroy RAF Fighter Command as prerequisite for invasion. The Germans held numerical superiority, tactical experience, and momentum from unbroken victories across Europe. Luftwaffe intelligence calculated that RAF would be eliminated within 4 to 6 weeks of sustained operations. Then Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of Britain, would proceed with air superiority guaranteeing success. The calculation was reasonable based on available intelligence. What the Germans didn't understand was that British industrial mobilization had transformed aircraft production from peacetime manufacturing into total war output that prioritized quantity, speed, and standardization over everything else. The workers. The production miracle depended on workforce transformed by war's demands. Women comprised 60% of Castle Bromwich's workforce by 1941. Housewives, shop assistants, teachers, anyone physically capable of operating machinery or performing repetitive tasks. Most had never touched tools before the war. Within weeks, they were building aircraft components to tolerances measured in thousandths of inches. Elsie Whitworth's experience was typical. 4 months of training, 2 months in technical school learning, blueprint reading, and basic metalwork, 2 months supervised on production line. Then full assignment to wing assembly section, where she performed same tasks hundreds of times daily, positioning aluminum panels, drilling rivet holes, driving rivets, inspecting joints. The work was exhausting, repetitive, and occasionally dangerous. Industrial accidents were common. Fingers crushed in presses, burns from welding equipment, hearing damage from constant noise. The factories operated under blackout conditions when bombing threatened, workers continuing assembly in darkness, broken only by shielded lamps. Yet absenteeism remained remarkably low. Workers understood what they were building. They saw RAF pilots flying aircraft they'd assembled. They knew their sons, husbands, brothers depended on these fighters. The connection between factory floor and combat was direct and personal. Joan Baker, another Castle Bromwich worker, recalled in 1988 interview, "We knew every Spitfire we built might save British lives. When you're riveting wings at 2 in the morning after 12-hour shift, that knowledge keeps you going. You'd see the finished aircraft roll out, hear the engines start for test flight, watch it take off toward combat. Then you'd start the next one. The work never stopped because the war never stopped." The emotional investment was profound. Workers named aircraft they built. Some wrote messages on internal structures that pilots would never see. Photographs showed them gathered around completed Spitfires, proud of craftsmanship produced under crushing pressure and impossible timelines. Castle Bromwich. The Castle Bromwich Aircraft Factory exemplified British production revolution. Built on farmland outside Birmingham starting in 1938, Castle Bromwich was designed specifically for mass production of Spitfires. The Vickers Armstrong facility covered over 80 acres, employed 12,000 workers at peak, and incorporated American mass production techniques unprecedented in British aircraft manufacturing. Britain's aircraft factories became masterpieces of organization and speed. Instead of building planes one at a time from start to finish, the process was divided into sections: wings, fuselage, tail, engine, all constructed simultaneously across the country. Each worker performed a single, highly practiced task, transforming craftsmanship into industrial rhythm. Components arrived from dozens of scattered workshops and were fitted together at Castle Bromwich, the heart of Spitfire production. Quality control was no longer in the hands of individual craftsmen, but managed by teams of inspectors who moved methodically from station to station, ensuring that nothing slowed the line. From the first rivet to the first flight, a new aircraft could now be completed in just 2 weeks. The results were astonishing. In 1940, Castle Bromwich produced only a few hundred Spitfires, 320 in total. A year later, output multiplied fivefold, and by 1942, more than 2,000 aircraft were rolling out annually. At its peak in 1944, the factory delivered 320 fighters in a single month. By the end of the war, it had built nearly 11,700 Spitfires, over half of all those ever made. Efficiency soared as experience grew. What once required 15,000 labor hours now took barely 8,500. Each plane cost around $5,000, not cheap, but priceless in its impact. Castle Bromwich wasn't alone. Hawker's factories produced Hurricanes at similar rates. Dispersed component manufacturers supplied both. Repair facilities rebuilt damaged aircraft in days. The entire system operated as integrated production network optimized for single purpose, keeping RAF supplied with fighters regardless of losses. The Salvage system. British aircraft production advantage extended beyond new manufacturing. It included systematic salvage and repair that Germans never matched. The Civilian Repair Organization, established in 1940, operated nationwide network of repair facilities that rebuilt damaged aircraft faster than factories could build new ones. The system's efficiency shocked German intelligence when they eventually learned details. The process was systematic. Crash occurs, salvage team dispatched within hours, aircraft or components transported to nearest repair facility, damage assessed, repairs prioritized by urgency, rebuilt aircraft returned to squadrons often within a week. Some aircraft were shot down, salvaged, repaired, and returned to combat multiple times. Spitfire P9374, for example, was damaged in combat 5 times, repaired after each incident, accumulated over 400 combat hours before finally being written off in 1942. Pilots joked about zombie Spitfires that refused to die. The Germans attempted similar salvage systems but never achieved comparable efficiency. Luftwaffe damaged aircraft often languished for weeks, awaiting parts or skilled craftsmen. British repair facilities, staffed largely by civilians and utilizing standardized components, achieved turnaround times the Germans couldn't match. The German confusion. Luftwaffe intelligence struggled to explain British production rates that contradicted all their assumptions. German reconnaissance photographed British factories regularly, counting visible aircraft, estimating production based on facility size and known manufacturing rates. The numbers didn't reconcile with observed RAF strength. Fighter Command kept fielding more aircraft than German calculations suggested Britain could possibly produce. Luftwaffe combat reports documented the confusion. August 15, 1940, KG-2 mission report, destroyed 4 Spitfires confirmed. Squadron returned to same sector following day, encountered 8 Spitfires, possibly including replacements for yesterday's losses. British replacement rate appears unexpectedly rapid. September 3, 1940. Intelligence assessment. RAF Fighter Command estimated to have lost 60% of operational strength since campaign began. However, squadron strength remains consistent. British production or reserve deployment exceeds previous estimates. September 18, 1940. Oberkommando der Luftwaffe report. British fighter production significantly higher than anticipated. Estimated monthly output, 400-plus aircraft. This exceeds German intelligence projections by approximately 100%. Source of additional production unknown. The confusion stemmed from multiple German intelligence failures. First, they underestimated British industrial capacity, assuming peacetime manufacturing rates would persist. They didn't account for total mobilization's impact on production. Second, they failed to understand British repair and salvage systems. German calculations counted destroyed aircraft as permanent losses. British rebuilt them. Third, they didn't recognize standardization's efficiency advantages. German aircraft were often built to artisan standards, with variations between factories. British aircraft were standardized components assembled like automobiles. Fourth, they underestimated British determination. The Germans assumed bombing British cities would reduce production. Instead, it hardened resolve. Workers who'd lost homes to bombing arrived at factories more determined to build fighters that would stop the Luftwaffe. The turning point. By September 1940, the production war was turning decisively in Britain's favor. The mathematics was simple and devastating. Net RAF fighter strength increase, plus 258 aircraft. Net Luftwaffe strength decrease, 132 aircraft. Britain was winning the production war while fighting outnumbered. Every week, RAF grew relatively stronger, while Luftwaffe grew relatively weaker. The trend was sustainable for Britain. Factories operated at capacity with room for expansion. For Germany, the trend was catastrophic. They were losing aircraft faster than replacement while also fighting on other fronts. Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring, reviewing loss reports in September, reportedly exploded at his intelligence staff. How is it possible the British still have fighters? We've destroyed their factories. We've killed their pilots. Where are these aircraft coming from? The answer was simple, but incomprehensible to German leadership. British factories hadn't been destroyed because bombing campaign had failed to locate or effectively target dispersed production facilities. British pilots hadn't been killed in sufficient numbers because German tactics focused on destroying aircraft rather than systematically eliminating airfields and training infrastructure. And British aircraft kept coming because production system was designed from the beginning to operate under attack, with redundancy, dispersal, and ruthless prioritization ensuring nothing stopped the assembly lines. The human cost. The production miracle came at enormous human cost that statistics often obscure. Factory workers endured conditions that would be illegal in peacetime. 12-hour shifts, 6 or 7 days weekly, minimal safety equipment, exposure to toxic materials, constant noise and vibration, inadequate ventilation, risk of bombing at facilities marked as military targets. Industrial accident rates were significant. Castle Bromwich safety statistics, 1940-1945, serious injuries requiring hospitalization, 1,247. Minor injuries treated on site, 8,900 plus. Fatalities from industrial accidents, 37. Fatalities from bombing, 91. Occupational illnesses, primarily respiratory, 340 diagnosed. The emotional toll was equally severe. Workers building aircraft, new pilots might die flying them. When squadrons suffered losses, some factory workers felt personal responsibility. Had they installed that component correctly? Could they have worked faster to get more aircraft to squadrons? The connection between production line and combat created psychological burden no peacetime worker experienced. Mary Thompson, who worked at Castle Bromwich throughout the war, described the pressure in 1995 interview. Every rivet you drove, you wondered if it would hold. Every wing section you fitted, you prayed it was perfect, because you knew men's lives depended on your work. When you heard about RAF losses, you'd wonder if it was one of your aircraft. That weight, that constant pressure, it never lifted until war ended. Even then, some of us still have dreams about missing rivets or improper fits. The factories operated under constant bombing threat. German intelligence identified major production facilities as priority targets. Birmingham, Coventry, and other industrial centres suffered devastating raids. Castle Bromwich was bombed multiple times, though dispersed component production meant no single strike could stop Spitfire assembly. Workers died at their stations during bombing raids. Many continued working through air raid sirens, prioritizing production over personal safety. The commitment was extraordinary and deeply personal. These weren't abstract patriots performing duty. They were mothers, wives, daughters, building weapons to protect their families and nation. The recognition. The contribution of aircraft production workers was recognized quietly during war and more substantially afterward. Churchill, visiting Castle Bromwich in September 1940, addressed assembled workers. "The work you do here matters as much as any action in the sky. The pilots who fly these aircraft depend on your skill, your dedication, your refusal to yield despite hardship and danger. Britain owes you a debt that can never be fully repaid." The tribute was characteristic, acknowledging contribution without exaggeration, recognizing sacrifice without sentimentality. The workers had done extraordinary work under extraordinary circumstances. That was sufficient. After the war, many aircraft production workers struggled to articulate what they'd accomplished. The work had been repetitive, exhausting, unglamorous. They'd riveted wing sections and assembled fuselages, while others flew combat missions or served in celebrated roles. How could repetitive factory labor compare to combat heroism? Yet their contribution was arguably more decisive than any individual combat action. Pilots could be brave, skilled, determined, but without aircraft, courage meant nothing. The factories provided tools that made bravery effective. The production lines sustained Britain when invasion threatened. The workers who never fired shots or flew missions defeated Germany as surely as any soldier. The final accounting. By war's end, British aircraft production had proved decisive in multiple campaigns. The near parity was stunning achievement. Britain, with smaller industrial capacity, under constant bombing, blockaded by U-boats, managed to produce almost as many fighters as Germany. The efficiency of British production system, standardization, dispersal, salvage, ruthless prioritization, compensated for smaller absolute capacity. More significantly, British production peaked early and sustained high output throughout war. German production increased late, but struggled with resource constraints, bombing disruption, and manufacturing inefficiencies. Britain built fighters when it needed them most, 1940, 1941, when survival depended on maintaining air parity. By time German production exceeded British, 1944-1945, the strategic situation had shifted irreversibly. The Grey Dawn, Birmingham, August 1940. 5:47 hours, the memory. Elsie Whitworth had tightened that last rivet on Spitfire R695's wing section, completing another aircraft that would fly to replace another loss. The mathematics were brutal but sustainable. Production exceeded losses. Britain could rebuild faster than Germany could destroy. The Germans never understood this. They counted victories in sky. Aircraft destroyed, pilots killed, airfields damaged. They assumed attrition would achieve what direct assault couldn't: gradual elimination of RAF's capacity to resist. But they were fighting wrong war. The sky battles mattered, but the production war decided outcomes. British factories operated faster than German calculations predicted, employed workforce German intelligence underestimated, utilized salvage systems German logistics couldn't match, and sustained output through determination German leadership never understood. Every Spitfire the Germans shot down was tragedy. A pilot lost, an aircraft destroyed, a family receiving devastating news. But it wasn't decisive loss, because behind every pilot stood factory worker building replacement. Behind every destroyed aircraft stood production line assembling another. Behind every squadron stood industrial capacity that refused to quit. The Germans could win battles. The British won the production war. And in total conflict, production capacity proved more decisive than individual combat victories. Castle Bromwich, Hawker's factories, dispersed component manufacturers, repair facilities, these unglamorous industrial sites defeated Luftwaffe as surely as Spitfires and Hurricanes did. The workers, mostly women, mostly civilians, mostly forgotten, won victory through repetitive labor that accumulated into overwhelming superiority. German pilots never realized what they were fighting. They saw individual Spitfires and Hurricanes, shot them down, counted victories. They never saw the factories working around the clock, the salvage teams recovering wrecks, the repair facilities rebuilding damaged aircraft, the production system that made every victory temporary and every loss replaceable. By the time German intelligence understood British production capacity, it was too late. The Battle of Britain had been lost, not in sky, but in factories that kept RAF supplied, despite losses that should have been catastrophic. The grey Birmingham dawn, when Elsie completed another wing section, when production line moved to next aircraft, when Britain's industrial heartbeat continued unbroken despite exhaustion and bombing and impossible demands. That morning represented Britain's true strength, not glamorous strength of combat victories, not dramatic strength of famous speeches, but patient, relentless strength of production capacity that simply refused to stop. The strength of workers who built aircraft faster than enemies could destroy them. The strength that won wars, not through flash or drama, but through sustained, unglamorous, absolutely essential work that accumulated into victory. The Germans never realized. By the time they understood, Britain had already won.